Welcome to the BMKT617 International Business Assignment 2 Guidance. This question relates to Porter's Diamond Model and the book called The Competitive Advantage of Nations. It is very advisable to consult this book in the library before trying to do this question, as well as the relevant notes from the lecture. Industry clusters are groups of suppliers and producers of a particular good or service that have actually located within the same geographical area. The leading example is Silicon Valley in the United States, but there are many other cluster examples around the world, some which we've used in the lecture, like the automobile high-end industry in Germany, but also some from Michael Porter's book. I particularly looked at the link between Silicon Valley and the Asian supply chain in terms of electronics and high tech. And this has definitely changed the nature of how we build global value chains and conduct international business management. So the question, discuss the role of industry clusters and critically evaluate the contribution they make to international business supply chains, looks at the way we build value chains and supply chains globally in what I called intercluster relationships. So look for clusters that have relationships between each other in international business and how managers use them to make supply chain decisions. But clusters are also about collaboration and knowledge management. That means collaboration and knowledge management and innovation within clusters, but also between clusters. So you can cover various aspects in your question. This is an open-ended question, so you can be creative. There is no exact model answer. However, you need to cover clusters, the relevance of the diamond model, intercluster relationships, collaboration, where companies work together, and the importance of innovation in international business. This question focuses on the importance of international knowledge management and also in part B, the concept of mass collaboration. So the first thing you should do is briefly define the importance of knowledge management, particularly in the international arena, looking at multinational corporations and how they have to coordinate complex structures across cultures, the challenges of international business, and secondly, focusing on the link to knowledge management in terms of competitive advantage and innovation. Try to come up with some good examples of companies who manage knowledge well and adapt to complex global environments. Secondly, mass collaboration is all about Dan Tapscott's Wiconomics and the fact that not all knowledge management and innovation comes from within the organisation, but you have to look outside for knowledge networks. So focus on the work of Web 2.0's Tapscott's views and how they contribute to innovation in the modern environment. Look at examples like Elon Musk, who opened up his patents in Tesla, and other companies who have changed their approach to international business and knowledge and innovation. This question is about corporate social responsibility and reputation management. As I defined in the lectures, corporate social responsibility, if you do it properly, and it's defined in the way that it should be, being proactive rather than reactive CSR, is about stakeholder engagement in the international environment. Reputation management is the area where you focus on CSR to create trust and to develop a brand that is trusted by various stakeholders around the world and which is more sustainable, not only in terms of the environment, but sustainable as a business in terms of shareholder equity and value. So the question about all of these kinds of companies is they've got involved in corporate scandals where they've mismanaged their reputation and their CSR engagement, often being reactive rather than proactive. We looked at the ultimate example of Union Carbide in India, who tried to save millions but ended up losing millions or even billions of dollars of opportunity in the developing world making fertilizers and pesticides. So look at the concept of corporate reputation, reputation management metrics, and their importance in international business. Therefore, you have to look at companies, case examples, theory, and concepts for this question. We've done a lot of work on mergers and acquisitions during this course, so it's a very important topic in international business. You need to concentrate largely on the complex global mergers for a question like this. And as research has shown, they have high failure rates. So try to look at the causes of high failure rates in academic journals and using relevant case examples from the lectures and classes. You then have to look at what we call due diligence and pre-merger integration and look at where companies don't really get that right, as well as examples of post-merger integration, including concepts, theory, and practice from relevant case studies. It's also very good to compare and contrast with successful mergers, explaining why the failures take place and whilst other companies do it right, like HP Compaq. So whilst you should talk about merger failures, you should compare them to successes as well. It's very important when you write an essay on this topic, not only to talk about case-based examples, of course they're valuable, but you should also use relevant theories and concepts. Look at the work of A.T. Kearney on merger endgames and the opposing arguments of the dubious logic of global mega mergers from Gemawat and Gadar. They're all on Blackboard. It is very important for this question to refer to the documentary Print the Legend, which is all about 3D printing and the actual breakthrough of smaller businesses in the consumer and prosumer segments, not just the big companies, and related to the concept of disruptive technology. So in this essay, at the beginning, you can talk about the definition of disruptive innovation, relating it to various examples, but then halfway through the essay at least, you should focus on 3D printing only and not just talk about disruptive innovation in general like students have in the past. You need to look at the concept of 3D printing, but not spend too long defining and describing what it is. Get to the point and discuss the implications for the future of 3D printing in various areas like manufacturing and the way it will disrupt other industries. There are loads and loads of examples, not only in the documentary, but also from various sources. Look at the TED Talks resources, and you can do searches for articles. You should also include academic articles where relevant to gain extra marks. A marking scheme and grading levels. Rather than go through a detailed analysis of what a pass or a failure is, I'd rather talk about the grading levels in terms of high levels of attainment. Secondary research is very important, so you have to use the Harvard-style referencing system. 30% of the marks go for the quality of the secondary research and using proper citations. So it's very important you have a references list at the end of your essay. But make sure that any references you put in that list are actually cited in the main discussion. Sometimes students put references at the end to make it look more impressive, but they don't actually use them in their main discussion. We will be checking for that. Now, it's important you have case-based references and web-based references, but if you're dominated by web-based references, you will get lower marks. You also have to think of academic journals, management consultancy articles from places like McKinsey, PricewaterhouseCoopers, etc. And you have to have a proper mix of these to get good marks. I think for an essay of this size, around 3,000 words in terms of report formats, it's very important to look for about at least 15 unique citations if you want to get good marks. If you have less, you don't really have in-depth research to support what you're talking about. Most importantly, in a report structure, you have to have a lot of critical analysis. You can't just define and describe. You have to move on to a critical discussion and build towards a good conclusion. Concluding arguments should be around 10 to 15% of your word count, not just a few sentences, a short paragraph at the end. So try to be critical, compare things to each other, develop critical arguments, advantages and disadvantages. Look at the implications of what you're talking about and their impact on international business and on companies and what they actually do. So being critical is about being comparative and also coming up with conclusive arguments. Sometimes in some reports you can come up with recommendations, but that's a creative choice depending on the topic. What you're really only required to do is come up with the different viewpoints, argue them through, and develop your own creative concluding argument. None of these particular questions are required to have a model answer. It is a creative exercise, and as long as you deal with the topic well and answer the question, then you can do well on this assessment. It's very important to think about also with a Word document before you upload it to proofread it. That means to actually read through and make corrections as well as run the Word spell checker. Spell checker doesn't pick up everything. I find the best way to proofread is to read things out loud and ask do they actually make sense, and then check through them. It's also wise to get a colleague or a friend to read through your assessment and then make the necessary corrections. You do get marked for attention to detail. It's also about the layout of such a report. So it's very, very important not just to write text, but to include some good visuals and diagrams, not just cut and paste it from sources, even if you reference them. Have you ever thought about using your own Excel spreadsheets to look at data and to recreate data and compare it to other sources? Have you thought about creating your own comparative tables or diagrams in Word? This actually gets more marks because it shows originality. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use tables and diagrams from other sources if they're really, really good. But the creative exercise of reconstituting data and doing comparisons is very, very good. And within reason, certain tables that you create, for example, comparing different things, isn't actually part of the word count. So try to use these tools to your advantage. Writing clarity is about the flow and structure of the report in terms of the headings and subheadings and the way it's actually laid out. It's okay to use occasional bullet points, but you shouldn't have either very long paragraphs that are over half a page long because they're very hard to read, or just short listed bullet points, because neither actually works. You've got to have a balance between short, crisp paragraphs and occasional bullet points. Grammar is also very important. Attention to detail in these areas constitutes the marks for 20%. So what is a first class honours paper? Well, I'm going to put some examples up from previous courses that I've taught on, just to give you a feel for the structure of a good report. It might not relate to these topics, but at least it gives you a feel for similar topics in strategy and international business and marketing. A first-class honours paper first is very good research. It's well presented. It might have the occasional mistake, but it's well written. And it's absolutely crucial to have academic journals and good practitioner sources from management consultancies and periodicals like The Economist. If you only use web-based references, you're going to struggle to get higher marks above the 60% level. It is not unreasonable to expect that from level 6 students. So that's all really, and I wish you the best of luck and success, not only in this assignment, but all your finals and in your future when you graduate. Good luck and kind regards, Francis.